So this morning, NTSB investigators are expected to arrive on the scene of that deadly private plane crash in North Carolina that killed 7 people. Among those who were killed was former NASCAR star Greg Biffle, his wife, and 2 children. Now, surveillance cameras, we've showed you this, captured the fiery tragedy. Look at that on video. The NTSB, we've now learned, is planning to hold a news conference today. With me now, CNN safety analyst, former FAA safety inspector David Susi. It's good to see you, David. Thank you very much for being here. With what we know so far, much more to learn from NTSB, what's your first big question here?
The question is why the aircraft made this back turn to come back immediately right after takeoff, and why he wasn't able to make the runway. He landed short of the runway. There's low altitude, was not able to maintain that altitude. So that's the first thing as an investigator I'd be looking at.
And David, on that note, I mean, I think we have an image of the flight path. It takes off from Statesville Airport. It gets some air. I think, you know, it gets altitude, but not much at all. And then turns around to try to return to the airport very clearly once again. And that is when it crashed. From your experience, what is the errors? What could have gone so wrong? And clearly it must have been happening immediately for that turnaround.
Well, some of the information you can gain from this is that if the aircraft took off and made it was a pretty stable takeoff, and then it made a good stable movement to come back around to the left side. So there wasn't any abrupt jumps up and down or anything like that. So it looks like the pilot was in control at the time. So the concern I have is that once it made that left turn and started coming back to the runway, rather than maintaining altitude, continued to descend. So that tells me that it's lack of power or lack of orientation by the pilots. So we have to look at both of those things. Unfortunately, this aircraft does not have a flight data recorder or any kind of voice recorder. So the investigators are going to have to rely on what the air traffic control information is, the communications there, which there was minimal. At this point, they declared an emergency and came back around. But in that flight path, too, you can notice that it's a pretty smooth descent. There's no abrupt change. So it tells me that they were in control of the airplane, but they lacked power to get back to the airport.
Very interesting. This plane was a Cessna Citation C550. You've worked on these planes before, David. In addition to not having data recorders, as you're talking about, what else stands out? What is the safety record of these planes?
Well, the safety record is quite good, actually, because the aircraft is a very docile aircraft to fly with regard to corporate jets. It has a straight wing. It doesn't have a swept wing like you see a lot in the Learjets and other jets later. But this aircraft is very docile. It's easy to fly. There's a few things concerned. There was a crash back in 2006. And after that, the NTSB issued a warning that when you take off with this airplane, if you have to transition from visual flight, where you're just looking for people around you and you're maintaining flight by sight, if you have to transition from that to instruments, it can be a very big burden on this aircraft, because this aircraft, remember, is before glass cockpits. There's a lot of technology that's not available in this airplane that the current models would have. So when you transition that, then it can be a difficult situation for the pilot.
It's very interesting, David. Your knowledge on safety when it comes to some of these planes is always remarkable to me. So thank you so much for coming on. Much more to learn, as I mentioned. NTSB expecting to hold a press conference later today.